Wake up, Woodward. What up, though, Detroit? Thank you guys for being here with us this morning.
Good morning.
It's been a fabulous start to the show. Chat, as always, is on fire. Need you guys to hit that like button to support the crew. If anything, hey, JB, show him your hat again.
Oh, my God.
Hit the like button for JB's hat. His hat game is elite. You guys aren't getting much better than that, man.
Do we have a problem? Great movie.
But look, we're on with the legend Detroit News, Rod Beard, and we got to talk about it. It's Woodward Pistons Wednesday, man. You know what? I got to do this drum roll. You can help me out here?
Yeah, I got you.
Let's rock, man. Hey, yo! Shout out to the legend Detroit News, Rod Beard, brother. Again, welcome to the show. But we got to start with Rod's thoughts. Detroit Pistons, man. And it doesn't have to be just related to last night's game, but just whatever is in the EOS of Rod Beard.
What did I say last week? What did I say last week? On this West Coast trip, they need to win one game. What game are they going to go out there and win? And what do? They win the first two games.
Hey, they're 2-2 on the West Coast road trip.
Hey, I said one game. They have doubled my expectations. This is where we are. This is what they brought us to. Is that we're celebrating 2 wins.
It's bad.
But the thought here is they could have packed this up, and this could have been a stinky road trip. This could have very easily been because that Portland game, that is a pack this whole thing up and let's be out. We're down by 20. It doesn't even matter. It's hard to go into Sacramento and get a win with the way the Kings have been playing too. The Kings are one of the top teams in the West. So to win the first two, it doesn't even matter. You're not going in and beating the Clippers. That's not happening. That doesn't happen. I forget what the record was in Staples or Crypto or whatever it's called today. They don't go in there and get big wins. So for them to lose to the Lakers and Clippers, not surprised at all. But I'm glad that they were able to go and get the first two because it showed that you have something there. The guys still care. And last year, that was one of the big concerns was that they had kind of packed this thing up and they were just playing out the string. So, okay, it's 2 more wins, but it's 2 more wins, and it's how they won. That gives you a little bit of encouragement about the fight in some of these guys and that the rest of the season, they're still trying to show something.
Yep. And you know what? There's been kind of this one current theme or topic throughout the season, probably throughout the last 2 seasons, and it kind of revolves around or centers around Cade+Ivey, Cade Cunningham, and their fit. Obviously, to end this season, we're going to get a very, very good look at how those 2 players can work together. I need your thoughts on Cade+Ivey, Cade Cunningham, what you've seen kind of so far, and how you think they can best make this thing work for the future. Because I believe that the Detroit Pistons' success as they move forward is going to depend on what these 2 players can do as teammates, as an elite, developing into some sort of an elite backcourt. We've seen all the previous Detroit Pistons winners from Joe D and Isaiah, and I'm not saying that these guys are going to be them, from Richard Hamilton and Chauncey Billups, but can they carve out their place in Detroit sports history?
Bold.
How can they best pair? They can best pair if Cade+Ivey is shooting 45% from 3. That's the best way that they can pair together. I think they just have to continue to have more. I haven't seen enough. They have to continue to be able to play on the ball and off the ball and switch off when they need to. And it's not Ivy having to shoot 40%. It's also Cade having to be able to shoot, but Ivy facilitating. If they can switch those roles, it creates more opportunities for both. And people that I hear from, because there's always emails, there's always comments and things, they want to put a lot on Cade and say Cade is not the player they thought he would be at this point. He's not a franchise-changing player that they thought he would be. I'm going to say he needs more around him. And Brandon, we talked about this for 2 years now. He needs an all-star around him. He absolutely needs an all-star to be the best player he can be. Because when you're flipping it to that corner and it's a 32% three-point shooter, well, I mean, what do you want? It's going to go in 32% of the time. It's much better when it's 38 or 40%. So the numbers just say that. I think you just need – Cade+Ivey needs to kind of raise his game and be consistent in that. and be sort of what we saw at the end of last year, where he was the point guard. He was the de facto point guard, and be that guy, but then also be a better shooter.
Yeah,
and this sounds like a lot of piling on Cade+Ivey and making it his responsibility. It's also on Cade too. Is that it was a turnover issue before, but now you just got to be a very solid 27-7 guy. Be that guy every day, and other things are going to fall into place for you.
Yeah, definitely. Because obviously, when they were drafted, when Cade+Ivey got drafted, we thought that he was going to be probably the most perfect fit for Cade Cunningham. This kind of fire, this ice, the combo between his downhill ability to get to the rim and to be able to kind of loosen up this defense that teams continue to throw at Cade Cunningham. And Cade Cunningham, as he relates to the mid-range game that he has, and his ability to kind of hit the three in the off ball, and his ability to go out there and kind of just sneeze and show up with 6 rebounds, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 7 assists per game. It looked like this pairing was going to be one that was absolutely going to work from day one. But you got the new coaching change, and Monty Williams. I want to ask you something about him, because shout out to Detroit Pistons fans. Straight up, man. It was crazy to see how many of them were active on social media last night. Stayed up to watch that game. Stayed up to watch the Portland game as well. These games went late into the night, obviously out there on the West Coast trip, and they're continuing to stay locked in. You know, they're not quitting. There might be some who've jumped off the bandwagon, and they'll come back when the Pistons are on the up and up, and they'll say, I never jumped off. But one thing that I know, everybody who's continued to stay locked in, that has gotten these fans' minds kind of in a tizzy more than anything else, these all bench lineups from Monty Williams, man. I'm going to be for real. I see your face already, bro. I'm going to be for real with you. I like the prospects of what Monty Williams can be as a head coach. We've seen him have success in this league. I do not understand it. I kind of wigged out a little bit earlier in the show about it. I thought that the all-bench lineups were going to go away when they trade out 8 players, bring in 8 players. What is the rhyme and the reason behind this? Because before the game, he stated something like, you know what, I would probably have to shorten it up a little bit, you know, with some new guys here. But then all of a sudden the game was played, and you still got 11 or 12 guys going out there, all bench units coming out there, and it completely changes the complexity of the game. And I don't know how much that's going to necessarily help the established players, or the players that you need to be established, that you need to gain chemistry, that you need to gain a rhythm, especially as the game goes on. And a couple times, it just kind of fell apart in that game last night.
Yeah, but I think the other piece of this is you have to see – it's always that video game mentality that some fans come into it with, hey, just play Cade 47 minutes and we'll be all good. No, that's not how it works. I mean, the rotations, yes, you can figure out ways to get guys in, but you also want to see what guys have and what combinations are going to work. Because you have so many new guys, you want to give them some time and give them some ability to stretch their legs and go out and play. You don't have a lot of opportunity to do that. You're not playing for the playoffs this season. I'm not that mad at it, because I want to see what Grimes has. I want to see what Fontecchio has. And with different lineups around them, if you were in contention for the play-in, I could see you kind of sticking to your guns on that. But this is very much whatever. Let's really just see what some of these guys have, and we'll figure it out later. And toward the end of the season, I think you might see a little bit more of going back to it once you have an idea. But these guys haven't played together in this system. It's going to take some adjustment to get that done.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I actually like some of these young players. They're showing, like Troy Brown Jr., Shake Milton, Fontecchio. I'm definitely, I like what he's brought to the table as well, especially from three-point shooting. When you trade Burks, when you trade Bojan, that's kind of what people are thinking of first and foremost. How are you going to replace that type of shooting? I can't wait to see what Quentin Grimes can bring to the table as well. You're talking about, and we spoke on a little bit last week when we broke down the trade deadline, a 6'5 player, 210 pounds, can shoot the three, can dribble, drive, can get into the lane. I think he's going to be somebody great to bring off the bench alongside Marcus Sasser as it relates to a bench contributor. With the Knicks, he was averaging about 11, almost 12 points a game, about 40% from three before he got into what I'm hearing from certain Knicks fans, into the doghouse with Tibbs. He's just not prone to play or want to be able to put rookies in a big position. And that's what kind of made his numbers dip this year. But I do believe, as it relates to what you're saying, you know what, see what you have, because you're right. Where are they going this year? The most important thing on the docket for the Detroit Pistons right now is figuring out where you're going to be next season, who you're going to add to this team, what's going to float, what's going to sink. That's the most important assessment that has to go on. And I get it. A lot of fans out there, they want to kind of joke around about, oh, it's Monty Williams as coach. Oh, it's Troy Weaver who put this team together. It's still our Detroit Pistons, man. It's still our Detroit Pistons. We're still that franchise that people went to and sold out 270-something odd games. We're still that franchise who people, no matter the ups and the downs, they've kind of stuck around to see what this team is going to do. And I do believe that there are better days ahead sooner rather than later for the Detroit Pistons, and they're kind of right on the cusp. I think that figuring things out as it relates to what you have right now, they went with effectively a youth movement, a complete youth movement, moved out all of their vets, and I think it sets them up well going into this offseason to be able to bring in the right type of vets. I'm still holding out hope that there is another star player out there at the 4 position. I've actually, and this is probably my last question on this, on the Pistons. I've actually liked how the offense has looked since Stewart has been out. I do believe that some of the hustle stats, some of the defensive stats, there's some things to be desired when you lose a Stewart. But I'm really just for 2 years now has said I don't want Stewart necessarily off the squad. But I believe that he's best suited to come off the bench, potentially to back up a Jalen Duren, which then allows Troy Weaver and allows the Pistons to go out in free agency or in the draft, however they so choose, to be able to kind of target that star or that star potential stretch 4 to kind of plug in that starting lineup, man. I don't know, man. Isaiah Stewart is that guy, is that piece, and I wanted to be able to get your thoughts on it as well about how this offense has looked. It just has seemed to flow a little bit better. The ball seems to not get stuck in the corners as much. And I've liked kind of the responsibility, I would say, and the opportunities that it's afforded to Jalen Duren as well.
What is the premier position in this league? What has it been for the past 5-10 years or so?
I would say the 2 premier positions is probably 3-and-D wing and a top tier point guard.
Well, I'll say the 3-4 type guy. Yep. Your LeBron, your KD, your Paul George, your Kawhi, your 6'7" to 6'9" type bully, almost. Giannis. Those guys around the league, if you have a guy like that for this last little period, outside of Steph and a few other guys, outside of those, you have a star at that position, you can do something because they help control the paint. If you don't have an electric three-point shooter, that's the way you want to go, is a guy who can rebound, who can score, who can play defense. If you don't have a guy who can guard that guy, you're in trouble. You can figure out from the perimeter. You can junk up defenses to keep guards out of the paint. It's hard to keep a 3 or 4 out of the paint. Your Anthony Davises, he's kind of a 4-5, but your 3, 4, 5, you need one of those guys to be the star of your team, and the Pistons just haven't been able to stop guys like that. They had a Jeremy Grant, which is sort of it. Your Blake Griffin was the best that they've had in recent memory with that. But they played that game for a while, and when they were most competitive is when they had a star at that position who could kind of guard the other guys. I don't know if Duren's going to be that guy who can guard the 3s and 4s, but during the struggle period here, that's the issue that they had. They haven't been able to guard other people's 3s and 4s, and they've come in at will and done what they wanted.
Yep. And that's a word, man, on the Detroit Pistons. You know, this is not all rainbows and sunshines. I don't believe that at all for the Detroit Pistons. There's 2 parts that I have to do for the Detroit Pistons. One is report and cover this team from a professional standpoint, as you did very well for many years for the Detroit Pistons. And then the other half of it is being able to give our outlook on what this team can be, what this team is currently. And currently, there's nothing to defend about the Detroit Pistons. This year is so far under expectations that it pains me, man. It pains me. We're all black for this segment. I still, man, I got my love for my Pistons.
Hey-o.
I still got my love for my Pistons. It's Valentine's Day. I can't shake that. But honestly, that's what fuels my passion for how I do cover this team and trying to make sure that every game is a must-watch, trying to make sure that every home game is, I'm there in person to try and cover this thing, and that I am passionately looking at what this team can do to improve, what this team needs to do to get back. That's what's on my heart about these Detroit Pistons, because you know what? when those Detroit Pistons are winning, man, it just seems to make everything right. The NBA, in my opinion, is better when the Detroit Pistons are winners. And I do believe with the young core that they do have, they are a few pieces away, not from being this kind of team that they've been of past, but they are a team that you can then look at and say, you know what, there's at least a foundation there. There is some aspect or ability for them to actually meet the expectations, rather than seeing this team go and the over-under be 28.5, and now all of a sudden they're on track for maybe 16 wins on the season. What I've seen since they traded for Muscala and for Danilo Gallinari, since that time, this team has looked different. And obviously going into the All-Star break, I want to see if this team can kind of repeat what they did during Cade's rookie year. It's nothing to write home about, but it's still the best stretch during the Troy Weaver era, that 10-14 stretch. I'm hoping that this team on the other half, yikes, man. I'm hoping this team on the other half of the All-Star break can actually show a little bit more chemistry, show a little bit more passion, because if you guys look at my Twitter feed from last night's game, I'm telling you guys, the defense was disappointing. The lack of hustle, though. So where you might not have ability defensively, I want to see a young team go out there and just all-out hustle. And that, to me, has been kind of the disappointing thing. When they're winning games, you see it so prevalently, how much this team is hustling, diving on the ground for the loose balls, getting after it as much as they can defensively, keeping their hands active. And it just seems like in some of these games, and a lot of these games, they're just not doing that. This is what is on my heart about this Detroit Pistons team, man. I want to see them go out there and just play with a completely different level of energy and bring back what we believe to be that Detroit hustle. I don't think Detroit grit is necessarily about ability. It's about what's in here. It's about what's in here, and I'm hoping that this Detroit Pistons team can get back to that even before they start to bring in some of these game changers that they're going to have an opportunity to bring in during this offseason. But any final thoughts, man?
No, I think we covered it all, man. I think it's just, are they going to Phoenix to win this last game of the road trip? Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you want to just see some fight. You want to see maybe they go in there with with Monty going back to his former team and saying, hey, let's go get a win for him.
Rod Beard,
Thank you,
Detroit
Rod.
News. Listen, I need you guys definitely check in with the Detroit News. They do great work there. The sports department being captained and piloted by our guy right here, the legend, Detroit News, Rod Beard. As always, brother, it's great to do any type of content, talk sports with you just in general. You're a great person, and I appreciate everything that you've continued to do, not just for me and my career, but even for Woodward Sports. So thank you.
Anytime, gentlemen. We'll see you next time.
All right, sir.
Thanks, Rod.
All right.
I love hearing his perspective because he sees it from top down across all four sports, but especially the Pistons. Hearing you guys go back and forth. And I'm a fan of presenting with a hint of optimism. You know, we're trying to figure out how these Pistons can get back to glory. There are going to be hard conversations, but the goal is for them to play well. So how can we talk about this in a positive way? So I love hearing you guys go back and forth.
Yeah, because it has to be about how this team gets back. We can come on here every show after show after show, and we limit a lot of the segments that we give to the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, on Wednesday, that second segment for Rod Beard, we're going to talk about the Pistons because this is a sports show for Detroit sports fans. I get it.
For the people.
Yeah, for the people, man. For the people. We never want to see numbers go down or anything of that nature. We want to be able to create a robust community and a robust conversation for all Detroit sports teams, man. And for the Pistons, I do believe that they have the makings and the pieces to be able to improve greatly if they just make a couple of decided moves. Obviously, a lot is going to rest on this young core. We see them at their peak, go out there, and you got three of these young players scoring 20 points. And then you see them like they did last night, and you just don't see an identity from this squad. That's the thing that ultimately – and listen, we talk about it, man. We talk about it as it relates to Brad Holmes with the Detroit Lions and the identity he's been able to imprint on this team. I think that that's where the Detroit Pistons are hurting the absolute most. More so than talent, I believe it's a lack of identity. And I think it's because Monty Williams, he doesn't really know, or at least he's still learning what to do and learning of this team and learning. When you don't play Cade+Ivey from the beginning of the season after the year he had as one of our most talented players, you're proving right away that that the identity to this team is going to take a big hit because the coach can't even put the best players in their best possible positions to succeed. to succeed. It's like as soon as they made that change, you saw at least a little bit of a glimmer of hope from the squad. And that's what I'm always going to look for out of these Detroit teams. There have been rebuilds, there have been attempts in the past where we just knew this is not it. This is not it. But this young core, and we got it on the back wall here, man, with several of these players. Asar Thompson, Cade Cunningham, Cade+Ivey, Marcus Sasser, Jalen Duren. These are young players that I believe you do buy stock in. I do believe that this Pistons team is within 2 to 3 seasons of being one of those teams that we can absolutely identify as a Detroit, having kind of that Detroit identity, that Detroit mentality.
Yes.
So,
yes, youth is coming. It's also coming in the NFL draft. We're going to have a short segment coming up next. There's a CBS Sports mock draft that came out. It excited me. It really did. We got to talk about there are actually 5 picks for the NFC North. We're going to talk about that when we come back and then have some fun with JB. What's trending with JB Smooth?
Yes, sir.
But Kool-Aid, can you tell them about Swiss Insurance? Shout out Alicia Keys.
Big shout out.
What?
Pause.
Swiss Beats, what up, though,
Swiss.
man? Swiss, he should have got some insurance for that, man.
Oh, he got paid.
Yeah.
He good.
Oh, my
I
gosh.
don't know about that.
Just a few days before Valentine's Day, too, man. You let your girl get kind of razzed by a usher.
Yeah.
But, you know.